Hey there, welcome to Chapter 3 of CBSE-NCERT's Psychology textbook. Yes, we are on meeting life's challenges, and I'm glad that you're here. So, in the previous conversations we had, we tried to understand the meaning of stress. We also found out some essential keywords, and we tried to understand how is it that stress impacts us cognitively, psychologically, physiologically, as well as behaviorally. So, can I start by requesting you to activate a stressful situation in your mind? This is going to be very helpful for us to understand the psychological impact on the well being. Take 60 seconds to think about this. Thinking about the stressful situation, does it activate any feelings inside of you? What are the emotional effects of recalling this event? Are you feeling anxious? Are you feeling nervous? Are you feeling a sense of sadness? Are you feeling some kind of fear? Whatever it is, please list it out. Now, behaviorally, does it cause some kind of bodily reactions from you? Are you feeling fidgety? Are you feeling a sense of, movement or slowness or withdrawn, a sense of being withdrawn within your body? Or is this creating some kind of ache in some parts of the body? Behaviorally, does it want to, get you to get up and move around or slam something or punch something? Or, does it make you want to probably just hug yourself? These are some of the behavioral reactions to stress like we discussed last time. Whatever it is, again, please list it out. Now, when you recall this event and activate it truly inside of you, cognitively, what does it do to you? In your cognitive mind, in terms of mental framework, does it make you feel a sense of indecision? Or does it make you feel, that you feel fuzzy or muddy in your own thinking or decision making or judgment? Unfortunately, guys, these are some of the side effects of cognitive functions from the impact of stress that you experience. Moving ahead, in your physiological, which is your biological body, does this create some kind of reactions within? Can you feel some sweaty palms, cold feet, a racing heartbeat, a rise or decrease in your in your energy, which is your blood flow or your blood pressure? All of these are also some of the symptoms which are physiological in nature, which have a direct impact on your being as a result of stress. Thinking through all of the things that we've done in the previous class, we're going to move on ahead. And today's class, we're going to experience the whole idea of the general adaptation syndrome model, which was suggested by Hans Seil. Please note that Hans Seil was very interested in understanding stress. So to understand this better, Hans Seil, he did some tests on animals, unfortunately. But yes, he explored testing animals and he tested them with high UV radiation. He also tested them by putting them in a lot of, high temperature, which was very uncomfortable for the animal. And when he got the animal to experience these stressful scenarios, he noted what their bodies responded with. What he interestingly found out that humans who were also admitted in hospitals due to serious injuries were exhibiting similar responses to stress that they were experiencing. This led him to understand the entire model of stress as is suggested by him, and is what is basically we try to adapt to when we're experiencing stress. What is this syndrome and what the model suggests is what we'll explore in class today. Let's go. I would request all of you to open your CBSE-NCERT textbook and underline and highlight as we go, or simply use these notes, which should suffice for your board exam purpose. So, when it comes to the general adaptation syndrome model, this model, like I said, was suggested by Hans Seil, and he interestingly studied animals and by, kind of cut. So this is how we look at the general adaptation syndrome model, like I just suggested, which was given by Hans Seil. And Hans Seil, he was interested in studying stress, which he set out with by studying its course on animals. When it came to animals, he subjected these animals to a variety of stressors, right? And these stressors were things like a very high temperature, some X-rays and radiation, as well as insulin. When he exposed animals to this, these poor animals in the laboratory, they kind of displayed a lot of discomfort for a prolonged period of time. This is something which he also noticed in the patients in hospitals, who were admitted because of whatever injuries they were experiencing. What Seil interestingly noticed was that there was a similar pattern of bodily responses which was exhibited by the animals and by the humans. It is only this pattern which he labeled and called as the general adaptation syndrome. So what is this syndrome and what are we really adapting to generally is it basically involves 3 stages. So the stages are set out to be understood as alarm reaction, resistance stage, as well as the exhaustion stage. So if you can just look at this little graph right here, this graph is going to take you through the stages. So this is the first stage, this is the second stage, guys, and this is the third stage. In the first stage, the body experiences a form of an alarm. So let's say that you've been studying for your exams and it's been a while that you're studying for exams and giving exams and almost half a month has gone by. Maybe towards the last exam, your body is going to give up and give you up some responses. These responses, they could be, your physiological body trying to create a sense of alarm in you that, oh my God, Vasudha, it's been a while. You've been preparing and studying for exams and you're tired now. Or maybe you are exhausted and you need rest. Or maybe a good night's sleep. So this would be the case where I am at the alarm stage of the model, wherein whatever stimulus, in this case the exhausting exams, they create stress and they activate my adrenaline pituitary cortex. This is a system embedded within my internal structure which triggers the release of hormones which produce stress. Okay, and it puts my body in the place to either fight it out or flight it out. So I'll either, stick it out and I'll probably still give my best and I'll probably fall sick or ill, but I will fight it. Flight it is when I just realize that I give up and I can't do this and I walk away from the circumstance or the situation or look at it differently. So this is the first stage, which is the alarm reaction stage. Moving on. Once when my body experiences the alarm stage, it then goes on to the next stage, which is called the resistance stage. This, guys, is the resistance stage. Can you see how the plateau, the alarm response, it takes the shape of a plateau in this stage? That means that my body is aware that it is in stress, but even with all the stress, it tends to somehow just want to cope with it. So the features of the resistance stage is that my parasympathetic nervous system, it becomes very cautious of the body's resources. It will get up and tell me that, hey Vasudha, you have X amount of sleep or X amount of nutrition or X amount of care of whatever exams or examinations you left with. So it, kind of goes around the body and it looks at the resources that my body has and lets me know how much do I have within to fight with whatever it is that's coming my way, so that I'm able to, as an organism, cope with whatever expectations my environment is placing on me, so that I'm able to effectively confront it. Okay, and this, my friends, is the resistance stage. Once when my body has been used to the resistance stage and it has been, going through the whole period of taking all the resources, taking whatever nutrition, sleep, whatever other things that I need for the current scenario, when it uses it up, unfortunately, it is headed for the third and the last stage as proposed by Hans Seil, which is called as the stage of exhaustion. Okay, Here, my body is absolutely exhausted and it does not have the resources to cope, and I probably will catch a cold and fall sick, or I will get a stomach upset, or I will probably have a bad headache, which will take a couple of days to recover. Right? So, what are the features of this exhaustion stage? Is that the body's resources will absolutely get exhausted, and my physiological, which is my biological body, it gets involved in this whole aspect of feeling ineffective, and it is susceptible to a lot of stress related diseases, like I said. Okay, so the common cold or a stomach upset or a lot of headache, right? Also things like a high blood pressure, and in some cases when you're experiencing the exhaustion stage over and over for a prolonged period of time, it can also lead to unfortunate diseases like a coronary heart disease. Okay, so this is what Hans Seil suggested, and this is the 3-stage model given by him. What is important to note here is that if you get a question on this stage, it is essential to introduce the general adaptation syndrome model. And yes, of course, to talk about the 3 stages in depth alongside its features. It is also recommended that you give out the diagram, which is mentioned here, in its 3 stages, as well as talk about the criticisms, which we will just explore together. Okay, so let's just look at some of the criticisms of the GAS model. In some of the criticisms that came up, the first thing that was suggested was that there's a very limited role which was assigned to psychological factors. If you look at the whole theory, guys, it's not talking about very many psychological factors which are involved in the entire process. Right? We've studied some of the psychological attributes in chapter 1, like personality, intelligence, aptitude, interest, so forth, but most of them were not taken into account when it came to identifying the role of stress in our everyday. Also, researchers have reported that psychological appraisal of events, you know how we discussed appraising the events as primary and secondary in the beginning of the chapter? So the psychological appraisal of events is so important in terms of determination of stress, right? Which was missing. It was not quite available. Also, the way that people respond to stress is substantially influenced by their own perceptions, personalities, and biological constitutions. This means the whole idea of individual differences, which we also discussed in the beginning of chapter 1. Isn't it true, guys, that all of us are so different in the way we respond to everything in our everyday? So it's only because of the way we perceive stress is how we also deal with it. If we understand that stress is something that is magnificent, it is something that is not in our control, that it is intense and it is going to, not feel very good. Towards the end, it's probably going to take us down, then that is our perception towards it. And that's how we will even be able to deal with it. We might magnify it beyond our ability to control it. Right? Also, some personality types are such that no matter how much stress comes their way, they're still able to deal with it without questioning it, right? So it is also a matter of resilience that each of us own. And yes, of course, the biological constitution. So biologically, how able are you? Are you vulnerable to stress in the sense of, are you too emotional that you get flown away or blown away by your circumstances? Or are you able to back off, look at the larger picture, and then deal with it adequately and effectively? So the determination of this and also the response towards it is what is considered as one of the criticisms of the GAS model, as it fails to take care of these factors. That's a wrap to this model. We'll move on to the next part of this chapter now. Facing up ahead, we're going to look at some of the stress relations. So, when we talk about stress and health, are we aware that our body and mind are connected? Whatever thoughts we think, it has a direct impact on the body. And this is something that we discovered in year 11 itself. So since there is such a big connection between the mind and the body, of course, the stress which we accumulate will happen to have its implications on our health. When we talk about the relationship between stress and health, this is what happens literally in our body. Let's explore. So when stress is something that gets prolonged, it has an impact on your physical health, like we just mentioned. It impairs the psychological functioning. Psychologically, you might tend to be a little weaker, distracted, with less concentration, with a lot less focus whenever we experience stress. All of this, of course, leads to the experience of exhaustion and a lot of attitudinal problems. Some of us might become passive aggressive. Some of us might just, experience a lot of mood swings. All of this stress, it basically comes internally as well as externally, with sometimes a lot of support or sometimes no support at all, right? So the last time that you experienced stress, you might have noticed that it's not just the internal noises which become very loud, but also because of the emotional experience that you have with stress, it kind of gets the environment involved as well. And those environmental constraints is what creates even more feelings of stress when you feel misunderstood or lack of support for the same. So it has certain impacts. The impact is both physical as well as mental exhaustion. When I say the word exhaustion, it is actually signs of chronic fatigue, weakness, and low energy. Physically, why this happens is because the body has gone through its share of wear and tear, right? It has held up the all possible resources which you had physically from within while you were experiencing the stress or going through it, right? And which is why chronic fatigue, wherein you feel constant sense of the lack of, perhaps the sufficient vitamins or the sufficient nutrition or improper sleep, very little or too much of it at the same time. All of this, it disturbs the body's balance, the homeostatic balance, and it sets in with weakness and a lot of low energy, right? All of which is overwhelming, and it leads to physical exhaustion. Of course, there is mental exhaustion. Mentally, what happens is that you experience this fuzziness. It's a sense of cloudiness which you experience in your own mind, and you feel a sense of irritability, anxiety, feelings of helplessness and hopelessness. You feel hopeless and helpless because you feel like there is no way out and the worst has already hit you. So mentally, you also tend to have a lot of intrusive, morbid thoughts that come to your mind over and over again and make you feel helpless. So this state, guys, of absolute physical, emotional, and psychological exhaustion is what is understood as burnout. So what's so important for you to know is that burnout could come as a one marker. Please note the definition very carefully and note that it consists of these three terms: physical, emotional, and psychological. Take score of this. All of this, from stress and health, it comes down to stress and immunity. Of course, health is closely related to our degree of immunity. And when I talk of the immune system also is full of resources, right? It's full of resources to help you combat the stress, to deal with it effectively. But unfortunately, immunity is something, when the resources go low, the immunity gets impacted. So you're unable to essentially deal with whatever it is that you need to deal with effectively. And the stress begins to then take over and create changes in your body, and of course, leading to illness, right? Illness eventually leads to your immune system weakening and creating more disease in the body. So the whole branch of psychoneuroimmunology is something that came on the rise when we try to understand the relationship of stress and health. Okay, so it brings together the research of the brain, the mind, and the immune system. The brain is the part which talks about the neuro, the mind is the part which is all about psychology, and immunology, which is to do with your immune system. This is how this word comes together. This very clearly explains us the whole concept of white blood cells, B cells, and T cells, and natural killer cells. Please understand this carefully now. So, can you see the cute B cells and T cells here? B cells are responsible with attacking invaders from outside. Let's say you eat some delicious snack, but it was not kept in a good environment, which probably attracted dust and other unseen, fungus. However, when you eat this, the B cells get activated and they feel like, oh my gosh, there is something that's invading our body, which does not seem friendly. So the B cells are activated. On the contrary, T cells are those which are attacked by invaders inside the cells. So whatever already exists within our body inside of these cells, which is not friendly for the body, T cells tends to attack those. Right? So T cells are working on the inner invasions in the cells which already exist within. B cells attack those which come from outside the body, from outside the cells. So B cells essentially are producing antibodies. T cells are producing antigens, or they're fighting the foreign bodies. T cells are just fighting the foreign bodies. And of course, we have the natural killer cells, which are always on the uprise to fight any form of virus, infections, tumors, which come along the way. So that is what is the function of these cells. Okay? Please note that the natural killer cells, which is also cytotoxicity, it leads... Cut. Please note that whenever there is a decrease of the natural killer cells, it gives an uprise to cytotoxicity, which is what results in a high level of stress. Up next, we're going to look at stress and lifestyle. Of course, guys, living an unhealthy life is what creates stressors in our life, right? The whole idea of living a healthy life wherein you are exercising, eating right, sleeping on time, waking up on time has become more of a lifestyle savior, because leading to the absence of this, your body's resources to cope with the environment effectively goes low. Okay? So the definition of lifestyle, very simply put, is basically the overall decisions, behaviors which you are taking as an individual. They determine your health and the quality of life. So guys, make sure that you're really taking care of your lifestyle and responding to it effectively. Of course, if you fail at taking care of your lifestyle effectively, it will lead to the rise of pathogens. Unfortunately, you expose yourself to these pathogens. And what are pathogens? They are nothing but those agents which are creating the physical illnesses inside of your body. So you've got to be very careful of what is it that you want to interact with. Are you going to be the side of health, or are you going to put yourself in the corner of ill health, right? Or a poor lifestyle which does not support you to get out there and be your very best. It is often observed that those individuals, I'm sure one of them is you, who is not sleeping enough, who's not eating enough nutritious food, is what will eventually lead to your downfall. So all those individuals who are not nutritionally healthy, who are not sleeping sufficiently, are the individuals whose health unfortunately gets combated, right? And it could lead to the rise of these abusive habits that you guys tend to develop, which is those risk-taking behaviors with alcohol and substance. And obviously all of this leads to the impairment of your own health. So to have pleasant experiences and to have experiences that support your well-being, I suggest you guys adopt a very healthy and productive lifestyle that could help you really take on your goals. That's a wrap for me for today's little interaction on stress and health. I hope that this has benefited you guys in some way, and I'll see you soon. Bye.